Antarctica holds secrets. 2 miles of ice cover a continent bigger than Europe and Australia combined. But beneath that frozen wasteland, radar shows something impossible. Metal structures, geometric patterns, objects that shouldn't exist. What if the last ice age didn't just freeze the world? What if it froze evidence of technology we've forgotten? What happens when the ice melts and reveals what's been waiting for 14,000 years? The continent wasn't always frozen. 90 million years ago, Antarctica sat closer to the equator. Forests covered the land, rivers carved valleys that still exist under the ice today. But here's what nobody talks about. The ice sheets didn't form gradually, they came fast. Climate data from ice cores shows temperature drops of 30 degrees Fahrenheit in less than a decade, 13,800 years ago, right when human civilization supposedly began. If you value documented evidence and scientific research like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the Antarctic Treaty Archives and Geological Survey data. Now back to the story. You know what survives in ice? Everything. Woolly mammoths emerge from Siberian permafrost with their last meals still in their stomachs. Bacteria frozen for millions of years comes back to life. Wood, metal, fabric, stone. If something got trapped in Antarctic ice 13,000 years ago, it's still there, waiting. Perfectly preserved. 1957, International Geophysical Year. 12 nations agree to explore Antarctica together. They bring ground-penetrating radar, seismic equipment. They expect to find rock and ice. They find something else, subglacial lakes, hundreds of them. Lake Vostok alone is bigger than Lake Ontario, but that's not the strange part. The strange part is what's in the lakes. Lake Vostok sits 2.5 miles under the ice. Russian scientists drill for 20 years to reach it. 2012, they break through. The water they pull up contains microbes that shouldn't exist, DNA sequences that don't match anything on Earth. But here's what the reports don't mention. The drilling equipment detected metal objects in the lake bed, large ones. Symmetrical patterns that radar reads as artificial structures. The Antarctic Treaty of 1959 forbids military activity on the continent. It requires all research to be shared internationally. It's been signed by 54 nations, but Clause 7 has a problem. It doesn't define what counts as archaeological versus geological discovery. When you find something made by intelligence, who gets to study it? Who gets to keep it secret? Operation Deep Freeze continues every year. American military transport carries scientists to McMurdo Station. The flights are classified cargo manifest, but former personnel talk, they describe equipment that doesn't match standard research gear. Ground-penetrating radar arrays that map structures 3 miles down. Drilling platforms designed for precision extraction, not core sampling. Heat exchange systems that can melt through ice faster than any published technology. 1991. Satellite imagery from Landsat 7 shows geometric anomalies in the Transantarctic Mountains. Perfect circles, right angles, parallel lines stretching for miles under the ice. The images get classified, but copies leak. Independent researchers study the coordinates, and they find patterns that match no known geological formation. The shapes are too regular, too intentional. What you're looking at defies explanation. The Peary Race map of 1513 shows Antarctica without ice. Detailed coastlines that weren't officially discovered until 1920. How did a Turkish admiral map a continent that was supposedly covered by glaciers? Either the ice melted recently, or someone had been there before. Someone who could measure and record accurate geography. The Orontius Phineas map of 1531 goes further. It shows rivers, mountain ranges, interior details of Antarctica that modern satellites confirmed in 1958. Cartographers in the 1500s had information about Antarctic topography that took us radar and decades to rediscover. The maps cite ancient sources, lost libraries, knowledge that survived from before the ice. If you value documented evidence and ongoing research like this, hit subscribe to support more investigations. Comment which country you're watching from. Now back to the discoveries. Charles Hapgood studies these maps at the University of New Hampshire. 1966, he concludes they're based on source materials thousands of years old. The projection techniques and coordinate accuracy require advanced mathematical knowledge that official history says didn't exist until the modern era. But the maps prove otherwise. Someone mapped Antarctica when it was ice-free. Someone with precision instruments and global navigation capability. Ice core data tells the story. The Antarctic ice sheet formed in stages. The last major freeze happened 13,800 years ago. Before that, parts of the continent were habitable. Coastal regions stayed above freezing year-round. River systems drained interior valleys. If advanced civilization existed anywhere on Earth before the Ice Age, Antarctica would be the perfect place to preserve evidence. Lake Ellsworth Drilling Project. 2012. British Antarctic Survey uses hot water drilling to reach a subglacial lake, 3 miles down. They expect to find basic microbes. Instead, they discover complex organic compounds, chemical signatures that suggest industrial processes, refined metals, synthetic polymers that shouldn't exist in natural lake sediment. The drilling team reports equipment malfunctions, unexplained electromagnetic interference, drilling bits that hit hard objects and stop, objects that scanner readings show as geometric solids, rectangular, cylindrical, too regular for natural rock formations. The expedition gets cut short. Equipment failures, they say, but crew members describe pulling up metal fragments that laboratory analysis can't identify. McMurdo Station receives a new shipment every austral summer. Heavy cargo flights from Christchurch, manifest lists, scientific equipment, but the weight distributions don't match standard research gear. Former aircrew describe containers that require special handling protocols, electromagnetic shielding, climate-controlled storage, objects that military personnel guard during transport. Byrd Station incident. 1956, Admiral Richard Byrd leads Operation Deep Freeze. His personal diary describes discoveries that contradict official mission reports: underground chambers, artificial lighting, structures that extend beyond the range of their survey equipment. The diary gets classified for 60 years. When it's finally released, key pages are redacted. Byrd's radio interview with Chilean press mentions encountering signs of previous habitation, ancient but advanced. Technology that surpasses 1950s capabilities. The interview transcript disappears from archives, but amateur radio operators recorded the broadcast. The recording survives. Byrd describes flying over areas that show no ice cover, green valleys, structures that appear artificial from altitude. Ground-penetrating radar surveys continue mapping subglacial Antarctica. The data reveals a landscape nobody expected. Cities, geometric patterns that stretch for hundreds of miles, circular formations with radial spokes that look like ancient urban planning, all of it preserved under ice that formed when human civilization was supposedly limited to hunting and gathering. The Nazca lines in Peru show sophisticated geometric knowledge, 1,300 years old. But Antarctic radar signatures show similar patterns on a massive scale, straight lines that run for 50 miles without deviation, circular intersections with mathematical precision. If these formations are artificial, they represent engineering capability that exceeds anything in the archaeological record. Lake Bonny Research Station monitors subglacial water systems. The lake sits in Wright Valley, one of Antarctica's dry valleys. No surface ice, but ground-penetrating radar shows structures beneath the lake bed, metallic signatures, right angles, geometric patterns that extend deep into bedrock. The research team reports equipment failures when investigating these anomalies. Electromagnetic interference that disables sensitive instruments. What happens when ice this old melts? Climate data shows Antarctic ice loss accelerating, 3 trillion tons in the last 25 years, coastal glaciers retreating faster than predicted models. As the ice retreats, it exposes bedrock that's been frozen for millennia, and occasionally, it exposes things that shouldn't be there. Helicopter pilot reports from McMurdo Station describe objects emerging from melting glacier faces, metal debris, geometric shapes, structures that appear artificial but don't match any known archaeological culture. The objects get collected immediately. Classified retrieval protocols. No media access, no independent verification. Magnetic anomaly data shows unusual readings across Antarctica. The continent sits over the South Magnetic Pole, but localized magnetic signatures don't match geological expectations. Concentrated magnetic fields that suggest large metallic objects buried under the ice. Objects arranged in patterns that appear intentional, like a network. Like infrastructure. Soviet Antarctic expeditions report similar discoveries. 1968, Vostok Station. Drilling encounters metal objects embedded in ice layers dating back 12,000 years. The objects show signs of artificial manufacturing, refined alloys, precision tooling marks, but the technology doesn't match any known ancient culture. The samples get shipped back to Moscow, classified indefinitely. What if the Ice Age wasn't natural? Asteroid impact theory explains rapid climate change 13,000 years ago. The Younger Dryas period. Global temperatures dropped 30 degrees in less than a decade. Ice sheets advanced thousands of miles in centuries, but impact evidence is scattered. Cosmic dust, micrometeorites, not enough debris for an extinction-level event. Unless something redirected the impact. Technology capable of planetary engineering, atmospheric manipulation on a global scale, the kind of capability that would require advanced knowledge of physics and engineering, the kind of technology that might leave traces under Antarctic ice. Subglacial volcanic activity creates heat sources that melt ice from below. lake systems that stay liquid despite surface temperatures of minus 80 degrees Fahrenheit. But some heat signatures don't match known volcanic activity. Concentrated energy sources that generate precise temperature patterns, like machinery, like power systems that still function after thousands of years. If machinery exists under Antarctic ice, it's been running on automatic systems for millennia, geothermal energy, nuclear power sources with half-lives measured in geological time, technology designed to survive ice ages, to wait, to preserve itself until the ice melts and reveals what's been hidden. The Antarctic Peninsula warms faster than anywhere else on Earth, 5 degrees Fahrenheit in 50 years. Ice shelves the size of countries break off and melt. As they do, satellite imagery shows objects emerging from the glacier faces, structures that were buried for thousands of years, objects that don't appear in any archaeological database. Recovery teams work around the clock during austral summer. Heavy lift helicopters transport discovered objects to secure facilities. McMurdo Station's cargo capacity expanded 3 times since 2000. New storage facilities built with electromagnetic shielding. Climate control systems that maintain precise temperature and humidity, like museum storage, like preservation protocols for artifacts too valuable to risk. What you're seeing challenges everything we know about human history. Either advanced technology existed thousands of years before official records begin, or something else built infrastructure on Antarctica before the Ice Age. Either way, the evidence sits under 2 miles of ice, waiting, perfectly preserved. The ice is melting, objects are emerging. Recovery operations continue in classified programs that span multiple nations and decades. But here's what they found last summer that changes everything. A drilling platform in West Antarctica broke through to a subglacial chamber. Inside, machinery that still operates, power systems that respond to external signals, technology that turns on after sleeping under ice for 14,000 years. The chamber contains workstations, control systems, display screens that activate when approached. The technology doesn't match any known industrial capability. But it works. It responds to human interaction, like it was designed to interface with whoever found it, like it was waiting for us to arrive. German Antarctic Expedition, 1938, Operation Neuschwabenland, 250 personnel, 6 months mapping interior regions that official records claim were unexplored. They established bases in areas that satellite imagery later confirms contain subglacial structures. The expedition reports discovering caves that extend miles underground, warm caves, with air that doesn't freeze human lungs at minus 40 degrees. Captain Alfred Richer commands the expedition. His classified reports describe artificial chambers carved from bedrock, geometric patterns etched into walls, metal objects embedded in ice formations that analysis suggests are thousands of years old. The objects show manufacturing techniques that exceed 1930s industrial capability, precision machining, molecular-level surface treatments, alloys that laboratory testing cannot identify. The expedition maps 350,000 square kilometers of previously unexplored territory. They drop survey markers and establish supply caches. But here's what the official reports don't mention. They also establish monitoring stations. Electronic equipment that remains operational after the expedition withdraws, equipment that transmits data back to Germany for years after the war ends. Project Paperclip brings Nazi scientists to America after 1945. Among them, glaciologists and geophysicists who worked on Antarctic projects. Dr. Ernst Zundel joins Bell Telephone Laboratories. His research focuses on electromagnetic properties of ice formations, ground-penetrating radar development, detection systems that can identify metallic objects buried under miles of ice. Zundel's laboratory notes describe experiments with ice-penetrating transmission systems, radio frequencies that bounce off buried metal objects and return precise location data. The technology gets classified immediately. Military applications, they say, but former colleagues describe research focused specifically on Antarctic applications, detection grids designed for continental-scale surveys. Bell Labs develops the first ground-penetrating radar systems capable of mapping subglacial topography. 1962. The equipment gets deployed to Antarctica as part of International Geophysical Year research. Official mission objectives focus on ice thickness measurement, but deployment patterns suggest they're searching for specific objects, predetermined coordinates, like they know where to look. Ross Ice Shelf Drilling Project encounters unexpected obstacles. 1977. American and New Zealand research teams attempt to drill through the ice shelf to measure water circulation patterns. At 800 meters depth, drilling equipment hits something hard. Metal composition. The drill bits shatter on impact. Replacement equipment produces the same result. Core samples from the drilling site contain metal fragments that spectrographic analysis cannot classify. The alloy composition includes elements in proportions that don't occur naturally: titanium, chromium, trace amounts of isotopes that suggest artificial refinement processes. But the ice layers containing these fragments date back 9,000 years, before metallurgy, before written history. Soviet Ice Station North Pole expedition reports similar discoveries. 1981. Arctic Ocean Research Platform encounters metallic debris embedded in multi-year sea ice, objects with geometric shapes and surface treatments that appear artificial. Laboratory analysis shows manufacturing marks, consistent with precision tooling. But carbon dating places the objects at 12,000 years old. The debris includes components that appear to be parts of larger machines, gears with molecular level precision, bearings that show no wear despite millennia of environmental exposure, materials that maintain structural integrity under conditions that would destroy any known metal, like they were designed for extreme longevity, for operation in environments that would kill conventional technology. Mount Erebus Research Station monitors volcanic activity at Antarctica's most active volcano. The mountain sits 12,400 feet above sea level, continuous lava lake, temperatures that melt ice for miles around. But ground-penetrating radar shows structures in the volcanic chamber that don't match geological formation patterns: rectangular chambers, cylindrical shafts, architecture that appears artificial. Erebus serves as a natural laboratory for extreme environment research. Scientists study how materials behave under conditions that mimic other planets: Mars, Europa, Titan. But some experiments focus on reverse engineering, taking apart objects of unknown origin, understanding manufacturing techniques that surpass current industrial capability. What happens when you find technology you can't understand? Reverse engineering requires starting with known principles and working backward. But when the underlying science doesn't match your knowledge base, you can't progress. You can only observe, document, store. Wait for your understanding to catch up to the evidence. Deep field research teams operate under communications blackout for months at a time. No satellite contact, no supply drops until austral spring. They work in areas where GPS signals don't penetrate ice formations, where magnetic compasses spin without finding true north, where electronic equipment fails for reasons that technical manuals don't explain. These teams report discoveries that don't appear in scientific journals. Objects that emerge from melting permafrost with manufacturing dates that predate human civilization, machinery that activates when exposed to temperature changes, systems that appear to run diagnostics on themselves, technology that seems designed to hibernate until external conditions change. Automated weather stations across Antarctica collect data on ice movement, temperature fluctuation, and atmospheric conditions, but some stations monitor electromagnetic signatures, radio frequency emissions from subglacial sources, signals that follow patterns too regular for natural phenomena, too complex for random environmental noise. The signals increase in frequency when surface ice melts, like the removal of frozen insulation allows buried equipment to communicate more effectively. Station monitoring logs show communication patterns that suggest network connectivity, different sites transmitting synchronized data, coordinated activity across continental distances. What if the Ice Age preserved more than we realize? Not just biological specimens, not just geological formations. What if it preserved entire technological infrastructure, power distribution systems, communication networks, manufacturing facilities designed to restart automatically when environmental conditions return to operational parameters? Wilkes Land gravity anomaly shows mass concentrations that don't match known geological structures. The anomaly spans 300 miles across. Dense objects buried under 2 miles of ice. Objects arranged in patterns that gravimetric analysis suggests are artificial structures. Building foundations, industrial complexes, urban infrastructure on a scale that dwarfs any ancient civilization in the archaeological record. Satellite magnetometry confirms metallic signatures throughout the anomaly region. Iron content consistent with industrial machinery. Magnetic field patterns that suggest electrical systems. Power distribution networks that remain electromagnetically active despite being buried under ice for millennia. Australian Antarctic Division monitors the region using ice-penetrating radar arrays. The equipment maps chambers and corridors that extend miles underground. Geometric precision that requires advanced engineering capability. Construction techniques that exceed anything in historical records. Architecture designed for functionality that we can't identify. But here's what changes everything about Antarctic research. Climate change accelerates ice loss faster than anyone predicted. Ross Ice Shelf loses chunks the size of cities every year. Pine Island Glacier retreats 12 miles in 2 decades. Thwaites Glacier shows signs of complete collapse within 50 years. As the ice disappears, objects emerge that have been hidden since the last ice age. Automated recovery systems activate. Protocols established decades ago by international treaty organizations. Equipment gets collected. Cataloged. Stored in facilities that don't appear on public facility directories. The recovery process operates under communication restrictions, stricter than military classifications. Personnel sign agreements that extend beyond standard security clearances. Non-disclosure terms that last lifetimes. Penalties that include criminal prosecution under laws that most legal experts have never seen. What they're recovering requires facilities that don't exist in conventional research institutions. Clean rooms with specifications that exceed semiconductor manufacturing standards. Electromagnetic isolation chambers that block all external signals. Storage systems with backup power sources that can maintain precise environmental conditions for decades without maintenance. Some recovered objects show signs of reactivation when exposed to modern electronic systems. Diagnostic routines that begin automatically. Self-test sequences that evaluate system status after millennia of dormancy, like startup procedures, like technology designed to resume operation after extended shutdown periods. The objects interface with modern computer systems using connection protocols that shouldn't exist, data transmission standards that weren't developed until the digital age. But the recovered technology incorporates these standards in hardware that predates human civilization, like someone anticipated our technological development, like they built compatibility into systems designed to wait thousands of years for rediscovery. Analysis reveals manufacturing techniques that combine molecular engineering with macro-scale construction, precision that requires atomic-level control over material properties, assembly methods that don't require traditional tooling, like the objects were grown rather than built, like biological processes were used to create inorganic systems. But the most disturbing discovery comes from power system analysis. The recovered technology doesn't use conventional energy sources, no chemical batteries, no radioisotope generators, no solar collection systems. Instead, they tap directly into geothermal gradients, Earth's magnetic field fluctuations, atmospheric electrical potential differences that exist naturally but require sophisticated engineering to harvest. This means the technology can operate indefinitely without external fuel sources. Self-sufficient systems that draw power from planetary phenomena that remain constant across geological time periods. Infrastructure designed to function automatically for millions of years without maintenance or oversight. Current recovery operations focus on sites where ice loss exposes previously buried objects, but satellite surveillance shows hundreds of similar sites across Antarctica, locations where ground-penetrating radar detects artificial structures under thinning ice layers, sites scheduled for exposure within the next 20 years as climate change accelerates glacial retreat. The scope suggests coordinated infrastructure development across an entire continent, urban planning on a scale that requires unified administration, technology deployment that assumes long-term maintenance and operation, like someone established permanent installations designed to survive multiple ice age cycles. Recent drilling operations in East Antarctica encounter chambers that extend below current ice-penetrating radar range. Spaces so large that sound echoes take minutes to return. Architecture that requires construction techniques beyond current engineering capability. Excavation that move billions of tons of rock and ice. Infrastructure that supports whatever operations were conducted in these facilities. Power systems in the chambers remain operational. Lighting that activates when drilling equipment breaks through chamber walls. Environmental controls that maintain atmospheric pressure and temperature within human tolerance ranges. Life support systems that have functioned automatically for thousands of years without maintenance visits. The chambers contain workstations designed for human operation, control interfaces that respond to touch, display systems that activate when approached. Information systems that present data in formats recognizable to modern scientific training. Like the technology was designed specifically for rediscovery by human technological development. But here's the revelation that reframes everything. The recovered technology includes manufacturing equipment that can produce items identical to objects found in archaeological sites worldwide, precision stone-cutting tools, metalworking equipment capable of producing artifacts attributed to ancient civilizations, technology that explains how impossible construction projects were completed using techniques that official history claims didn't exist. The Antarctic facilities weren't just research installations, they were manufacturing centers. Production facilities that supplied advanced technology to human civilizations across the planet before the Ice Age ended everything. The last operational remnants of a global technological infrastructure that got frozen in time 13,800 years ago. And now the ice is melting. The facilities are reactivating. Manufacturing systems are coming online, like they were programmed to resume production when environmental conditions returned to operational parameters. When human civilization advanced enough to rediscover and utilize the technology that's been waiting under the ice,